Hey everybody, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev. Good day.
Good day. How's it going?
Well, I'm alive.
What does that even mean? Because we never really die. But anyways, back to the alive part.
Oh, I've not been feeling. I went home, so I have a full-time job now, and I went home Friday, not feeling well. I slept from 12:30 p.m. Friday afternoon until about 9 a.m. Saturday morning. And then slept like most of Saturday as well, off and on. Feeling tons better, still nasally, but I know it's has to do with my schedule being turned upside down. So when you're working from home, I had this schedule, and now that I have a full-time job, I was trying to maintain or manage that full-time position and the commitments that I still have in my business, and putting other things aside, which included not meditating. I mean, it was the 7th of September before I realized I hadn't read my cards, my monthly card that I have. I hadn't read that. Like, all these things were getting put aside. So it's like overdoing and not overdoing for sure, and not giving attention to my other needs.
I totally hear you. I really do.
So
I think we go through this a lot. Huh?
I've been getting up at like 4:30 so I could get some of my business stuff done before going to work all day, and then get home at night and the dinner and the home stuff. So it's been a huge. I'm still adjusting. Let's put it that way. I'm still adjusting. It's been
Yeah. Well, and for me, even I noticed before starting a new job, it's even if you're familiar with stuff, even if you have ways of doing things, that you have these natural skills and abilities for your advertisements, putting up information, like all these things, sending out emails, all the stuff, plus your classes, all that stuff. It's like, that's all daunting stuff. It's overwhelming, and we get lost. And I think that's, you're saying all this stuff, and I don't work for a full-time job, but it's like I keep myself busy with my massages and then my grandkids, and then, gosh, most of the time I'm not getting home till after 4:30 anyways. It's like I'm going to a full-time job, and you're exhausted when you go home. So I don't meditate. I haven't been doing it. When I do it, it's amazing, because but it's having the time to do that. But back to that new job, the new job takes everything from you, and it takes your focus, it takes it takes all your senses, it takes your complete attention. So you're like, you are now put aside to the side burner, right? You personally are, and then this is what happens. Not saying that we bring it on ourselves, but if we're not listening to the little subtle hints ahead of time, the body gives us that break that we need. And you obviously needed that break. You obviously needed that much sleep, because we just can't lay and sleep like that unless we're that exhausted, honestly. So that's a lot. So it just kind of goes to show you where you were at.
Yeah.
So much, putting yourself so much. And then I'm learning some, I'm listening to different people speaking, and we really almost need permission from others for people to step forward. And that's why a lot of times we're that permission for others to step forward and say, you know what, I've got to do these things for me. I still have to meditate. I'm going to have to put this other stuff's going to have to go on the back burner to where I have time, because I know how I had to call in Thursday because I had to have the day. I had to have it. I don't call in very often, but I had to. I had a headache. Every time I got up to go move around to do anything, my headache would get worse. If I was just sitting here, I was okay. But getting up and moving around, it was just miserable. So it's like, okay. But I had to honor myself. Normally in the past, I would have forced myself to go to work. Obviously, things are a little bit differently. I have control. This is my schedule, so I can change these things. But I also know when I change someone, I have to find a place to put them, because I don't like putting people off. If I'm booked out a few weeks, I don't like to put them off a few weeks later after they've been waiting for this appointment. So finding places to put things. And then in realizing we kind of got to step aside sometimes when we're the teacher or when we're the guide for other people, because they either need to go looking for another instructor, or a teacher, or a counselor, or a guide, or coach, or whatever you're looking for, because they're, for whatever reason, not growing any further from where they're at. They got what they needed to from whichever person, and it's time for them to move on. And sometimes, and I was told this recently, because if I maintain massage and I keep seeing these certain people, I'm not allowing them to, I'm not setting them free for them to go find another teacher. They've grown to where they can grow, right? So it's time for them. And a lot of times we get into this comfort place, which is kind of way off of where you're going, what you've been going through. Well, maybe not. You were, I don't know, but we're getting this comfort place, and it's so easy to stay in that space than it is to go do any of the other things. It's just so easy. And I'll go back to the permissions. We're looking for the permission from someone else to say, hey, it's okay. I hadn't listened to Mark, the Michael Bernard Beckwith, being interviewed by Alex Ferrari on Next Level Soul. I don't know if you've already listened to that. I listened to part of it, and he says, what did he say? He said something along the lines that he says, I became what I thought I should be for everybody else. So we've got this doing, we've got these thoughts, all these things that are not even ours. And it's almost like we need permission to drop those things like, hey, you're holding on to all this stuff. It's not yours, for us to be able to move forward. But we don't know what that looks like. So we know that we've got to have the job. And that's easy for you to go into. We know there's a lot of information that's flowing for you. We know it actually opened up. You've got your blue shirt on today, but it opened up like the throat chakra even more. And that creativity, right? So then it was a creativity that was more funneled in one direction instead of in a few different directions. And that's, since we've talked about that, I've been excited about that. I'm kind of going all over the place, but it seems like one thing kind of goes to the next, and I'll figure out how it all ties together probably by the end of the conversation if we're all lucky. But I just see a lot of stuff that's going on with you, and I also know it's given me permission to do these things, and it's also recognizing how I've been pushing myself too much, because I see getting up at 4:30 in the morning, and you know what I mean, and you probably weren't going to bed till like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, hopefully by that time. But I know you're a go-getter, so it's like you would go overdo all these things when it's time for just you time. And it's like, how do you maintain a you time when you're in a full-time position like that? Honestly, like, how do you carve out more time? Do we go back to our early conversations? I've got 5 minutes. So I'm going to go take a break in the bathroom. I'm going to go smoke. I'm not really going to go smoke, but I'm going to go sit in my vehicle and breathe for 5 minutes. Like, how do you, because this is all new. And I know how I've lost friendships starting a new job because they were upset because I didn't have, how come you didn't call me? It's like, I have been going like nonstop, a new job. You don't have time to do any of that stuff. Maybe I did, but I didn't know how to make time for it. I just knew what was expected of me, which goes back to that conversation. We've always been doing what others have expected of us instead of who are we? What do we really want? And then we put ourselves into these positions, like we think that we have to do these things in order to get these other things. And it's like the whole United States, I want to say United States, but because I think that a lot of it is here, it's supply and demand, creating more things for us to want, for us to buy, for us to be on credit cards, for us to have to work, 60 hours a week, because I used to do it. So it's like, there's just a lot of different directions we can go with this. So
It is a lot.
it is. It's
Like
like,
I
but
said,
doing that like feels like you have like a lot on top. So I don't know if you feel like you just have a lot on top of you right now.
yeah. And like I said, my whole entire schedule has been turned upside down. And so doing the best I can right now. And that's what we've always told everybody, do the best you can right now. And if that means when I go pee, that's when I take 2-3 rounds of deep breathing, that's it in that moment. But how many times a day do I go pee? I don't know, 10, maybe more. So that's still about 20 minutes. So and having ease and grace with yourself as you're navigating something new. You're also moving through the process of, we talked about this last week, is grieving the loss of what was and stepping into what is now. and just moving through it. I don't have any, I'm not feeling like sad or remorseful or anything like that as far as my business goes, because it is for now. This is what I have to do for now. And, you know, I've been talking about leveling up. When the universe thinks it's time for you to level up, you fucking get right into a position where you're going to learn, right? You're going to learn, and then that's going to be one more thing you can teach. So I know it all is going to happen for a reason, and I'm just being open to how it transforms and how I navigate it. And so far I've done really good. I just, again, just not listening to my body and trying to overcompensate for the things that I still have commitments to. But at the same time, feeling some freedom in the idea of, I don't have this huge, long to-do checklist that I had every day. And so I'm just learning. That's where I'm at right now. I'm just learning. And so that it just is right now.
Nice. I heard someone talking the other day about traumas and how we've all been in traumas. We've been, you know, surviving in traumas our whole lives, that we've forgotten what it feels like to be in that space of just joy. And so I was hearing that. So then the next thoughts that my mind went to was like, how do I surrender to joy? Like, how can I have more joy in my life? Like, what does that even look like? Because we're familiar with traumas. We're very familiar with traumas. So it's like, I started asking myself those different questions, and I've even started asking, back to the heart stuff. Like I probably could go back through videos and figure out, you know, this is where I was at. Well, I'm back to the heart stuff. It's all about the heart. It's all about love. It's all about love. Everything that we do is all about love. If I'm always going through the space of love, I'm always going to see the bigger picture, always, because otherwise it's a limiting picture. And that's why I say the permissions. I listen to these people and it's like, how come I haven't thought about this stuff before? It's like someone presented this idea like it's some sort of a miracle, which it is. Another miracle that we probably overlook so many times as a miracle, because it is a miracle. For that stuff to come forward like that is very freeing and very releasing. I listened to another Next Level Soul interview, and it was with Mary Reed. And she, like the beginning of and I wouldn't watch it for some reason. Every time I would see the video, I was like, I'm not watching that. I'm not watching that. And yesterday, it's like, I'm like, okay, universe, you know, show me something that I could listen to that's going to really reach me. It's going to touch me. It's going to help move me. And then this video shows up again. And I'm like, okay, well, I got nothing to lose. And I turn it on, and it's like, I love her voice. I absolutely love her voice. I had a client with the same voice, the same patterns, the same, like the intellect, I don't know. It's like juicy. I don't know. It's just so weird for me. But I was listening to her, and it's like all the experiences that she went through. And it's like, she says, I quit everything. You know, we're wanting all these big aha moments and all these big, huge things. And it's like, she had these big, huge things, and then she didn't know what to do with it. She had no one to talk to. She didn't know, you know, where to go with it, to the point where she's like, okay, I'm giving up. She took a bunch of sleeping pills and 3 glasses of wine, and like, that was it. And she said she woke up 2 days later, you know, having some issues, but she was still alive and realizing that wasn't her path to go out that way. But having such grand visions of, you know, for hers, it was like even waking up, like all of a sudden she's in Jesus's body while Jesus is on the cross being crucified, can feel all this, can feel all the people that are around this person, and then being yanked out, like all these things that she was experiencing Buddha, like before it was ever even documented or written about, from her perspective. This is her information that's downloaded her. And I would say, yeah, please sign me up. But then you hear the other side of her, like talking about it, and it's like, you've got to integrate this stuff. And it's like, we've been listening to all this stuff for so long, and now it's a matter of integrating the stuff. I'm, you know, doing you're doing it all in a daily life now. You're integrating all the things you've been doing all day long. Really, that's pretty phenomenal. And to even get into a space where you can be utilized that way, that you have, like, where you might have been sitting in a room and saw maybe 2 doors in front of you, and then, maybe the third one was open. Now you can look around you and there's all kinds of doors opened. So it's like you've just taken a step from one stepping stone to the next. It was part of the progression. This is not a going backwards at all. This is totally a progression. But it's like you hear all this stuff and we don't know. Like she says, she says, I quit everything. I quit trying. I quit. The thing for me is like, I had a conversation with a friend last night. We were texting back and forth, and a realization hit me was, I always felt like I had to know everything. I had to know everything since I was a kid. Like, how is that even possible? From my adult mind right now, that is not possible. Even in my adult mind, there is no way I could possibly know everything. And then to know everything about every type of career that's here, to know, it's just not possible. We can connect into that information and we have access to it. But to know everything, that I put such a responsibility on myself, it makes me like want to cry. It's why where did that come from? I don't know where it came from. I haven't gotten that answer, but it's like, it's so crazy to me for that to be in my experience, for that to be all of a sudden an aha, a realization. And it's like, wow. But it's like all these videos, it's all these little things that we're being guided to, me seeing you, how you're handling and you're going through your experiences, talking to people that are coming into my experience, and bringing in new people. And then being like so surprised by these new people that show up. It's like, oh my gosh, you're like right on the same level. You're like, not same level, sounds like that we're on different levels, and we don't, we're just resonate with some people more than others, would be a better way of saying it. Really resonated with her, and is bringing such valuable information to the group, like to everybody, to us, to the world. And it's like, that's the same thing that we're doing every day, but we don't ever, I don't ever sit and celebrate like, hey, look what you did. Like, you showed up today. You didn't know what the hell was going to go on, but you still showed up. So I find it that there's so much interesting going on, but the one that has really gotten me is really nice. And I just touched it last night, was that I felt like I had to know everything.
Mm.
Even to the defensiveness, like even to all this stuff. I don't know where I picked it up from, why it was there. Could have been from another lifeline. I have no clue, but I just know, I just saw it there.
Well, if you think about it, when we were children and we did things, I mean, if you're an abusive type of environment, why did you do that? Don't you know better? Those types of things. So it's,
Before you were even starting to say that, that popped in my head, and then you said, I was like, oh, that is so it.
yeah. So it's just the things that the messages that we receive from childhood. And then, so if we don't know better, then we're going to get in trouble. So again, they're not good enough. I didn't know. So because I didn't have the answer, I didn't do it right. Now I'm not good enough. So I'm not loved and accepted. And then that just snowballs into our adulthood.
And then not even really having a concept of how that has affected my adulthood, like all the way up to right now. Like I can't even fathom right now how vast of an area that could have encompassed in my whole life, and controlled my whole life from that one experience. And so when we're saying that, I noticed that, like, Colton's very literal. I haven't really noticed if Vivi is. She might be, but I'm almost wondering if all kids are literal. So when someone says something like that from an adult, the adult perspective to the child perspective, we're taking these words so literal. That's like, you should know. And it's like, oh fuck, I should know these things. And I didn't know. And I've watched the correspondence between moms and the kids, and they'll say, now you know better, you weren't supposed to do that. I hear the conversation, I've seen it too, and it's like, they'll ask a question and they'll answer and they'll say yes, like they understand, but they don't really understand. Not from the perspective, how could they possibly ever understand from the perspective of a human experience that's been here all the way up for 30 years versus a human experience that's only been here between 4 and 6 years old. There's a huge gap. The understanding is going to be totally different. When we say, do you understand, as the adult, we have a whole different perspective. We have a whole different we've got a freaking huge ass book that we could pull out right now and reference it all the way back to such and such time. They don't have that. So when we ask them those kind of questions and they say they understand, because they think that they already think that they should know the freaking answers. They already think that they should know better, and they don't know better, which creates more confusion. It's so crazy how we even ended up here, but this is us. I mean, this is the way the conversations go. And it's like afterwards where I'm like, holy shit, did you see all that stuff that was flying by? Because it's like I barely caught it out the corner of my eye. But it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. And then right now, even having this conversation, because I can visually see how it all happened, how it all trickled down, how it started from me. And now I can even see it all the way back to being in trouble when I was a kid, that I should have known better. Because when they were kids, it was the same thing.
Well, and the answer to the question is, do you, what did you say? You should have known better. Do you understand me? Well, of course, the answer is yes when they don't know, because if they say no, what's the repercussion of that? You know?
Yes, you're right. And then what is the repercussion of that? Well, then you're made to feel bad because you don't know, and you're not, no one sits down and says, well, listen, Amy, this is really what's going on. And that, I say no one does that. I do that. There's a lot of us that do that. And so it's just being that person that's going to be that ripple that however we're going to show up, right? Because we're always showing up. That was the one thing that Mary Reed said. We're always showing up. It's what are you putting out? Every day we're contributing to our society. We're contributing to our day. We're contributing to those around us. We're contributing to everything. What are you contributing? So it goes all the way back to, I mean, all this kind of is encompassed, because if we approach it from the peaceful side, if we can approach life from a moving meditation side, that would be the practice, right? To even be able to go into a job and still be able to move through it with moving meditation. I don't know how to do that. I haven't received that training. I had to take a freaking Thursday off so I could, reset. And I hadn't been around a lot of stuff, but it's just that different between, I always want to say it's from being in town to being out of town, but it's not. It's when I'm going to town, I'm constantly go, 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 go. And I'm not allowing myself that slow grace and ease of receiving all this great information of how to take the next step, when to take the next step, watch out for this, look for that. I get into that, just jump on the hamster wheel. And then you totally forget all about yourself. I totally understand it. I have been doing it, and it's, I guess it's learning how to have time for that all day long. I know, like we've already mentioned about the bathroom, taking that time, taking some breaths, but it's like doing this on a regular basis. It's like also doing meditation and knowing meditation's for you. It's not a punishment. It's not something you have to do. It's not, I mean, you can, or you can skip it. It's totally up to you. How do you feel? Does one make you feel better than the other? We're back to that conversation. So it's all connected.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. How we show up in all these different scenarios. And I have to say, so in my perspective of having this full-time job, of course, I went through the grieving part of the change. And I have noticed that when I'm getting ready for work, getting ready for the day, going to work, like, there's no remorse, there's no regret, there's no sadness, there's no, oh God, I gotta go to work. There's none of that. It's just like, oh, I get to go do this now. And I'm gonna say it's been a challenge. The first week was a challenge because I was working on a program that I'm not familiar with. And on Thursday, I figured it out. And I was so proud of myself. I texted my boss, I texted a coworker. I'm like, I did it, and I was so excited. And then it was Thursday night that this stuff started settling into my body. And Friday I went to work, and I just told my boss, I'm like, listen, I don't think I'm going to make it through the day. And there has already been one lady who had called off on Thursday. And there was other people that she's aware of that were being sick and stuff, and not in our office, but just people she knows. And she goes, well, sometimes you just need to go rest. And you know how comforting that was to hear that, instead of having some kind of a guilt trip put on you, or well, you just started, justifying the fact of taking time off when you just started a job. And I didn't, and then in previous years, in my old self, I probably would have suffered through it and stayed the whole day. And I think that's a big accomplishment for myself too, is to speak up and say, I don't think I'm going to make it.
That's
So
awesome.
I can either stay here and be miserable and sick and possibly infect other people, or I can go home and rest and get over it. Like those were the two options. There's no other option. And for her to just say, well, sometimes you just need to go rest. It was giving me permission to be okay with that. But the fact that I even used my voice to speak up. So, I mean, that's big in itself. That's huge. Really.
It is huge. Because I would go to work sick all the time.
I did too.
And I would always have the hopes that someone would say, go home.
Right.
And most often that was not the case.
Nope.
So that's just awesome. I find that completely awesome. Another thing that you found out about yourself. Another thing that's like such a pat yourself on the back type of thing, because it really is. That's because a lot of times we don't speak up for ourselves, and thank God you did. Otherwise it could have been a lot worse, honestly.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's still things to celebrate, and I'm super grateful for it all. So, this is an adjustment. This is an adjustment. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. That's awesome.
So, people who have their crazy lifestyles, whatever that might look like, maybe you're a caretaker and you don't ever get time for yourself. And, you think, well, here's Amy and she's teaching this, but she doesn't live my life. You're absolutely right. But I have always said, do what you can. I've always said that. Do what you can. And even if it's when you go to the bathroom and you sit there and take a couple rounds of deep breath and that's all you can do, at least you're doing something. So that's where I'm at. I'm doing what I can for now. And over time, I know it's gonna evolve and change, and I'm gonna grow with it.
Because don't you feel like you needed the break? You needed the break from everything. It's like a reset. You're being recalibrated.
Yeah.
Even all the way up to being sick, right? Because all the way up to being sick is, even though you're resting and stuff, you're releasing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Coughing, sneezing, whatever, however it's been going. And then of course, with all the blooms, there's so much bloomed out here. It's like with all the rains that we've had such new blooms. Freeman, his eyes are so bad. They're just, he's just really been struggling with that. And then taking all the stuff. It's for me, I would be like, hey, go look in the book. But it's not, some people are not always, are ready to look at that stuff. Because I know there was a lot of times I look at it and be like, well, none of that means anything to me. So, or actually I've read some of the stuff to him and he's been like, yeah. And I'd be surprised, right? Because it's easy for me to assume that he wasn't having those experiences. But I just find it there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot going on. And then even for you to start having symptoms Thursday, kind of gives me an idea there's a lot going on, even for another person that had went home Thursday. So energetic wise, there's a lot of stuff going on. And if we approach it with grace and ease and realize that, sometimes this stuff happens and sometimes we need the break. Gosh, there's been times that I wanted to be sick just to get the break. Honestly, isn't that ridiculous? And think about that out loud, because I'm sure I'm not the only one, but wanting to be sick so you don't have to go to work instead of just being like, I'm not going to work. I'm
Yeah.
calling in today, but it's like, it was not in my nature to call in. It was because I wasn't trained that way. I was not trained that way forever and ever. I didn't call in for a lot of jobs. And then it's like, now I'll just do it when I need to. But I also recognize I need, needing the time off, needing time for myself. And then recognizing also when we're trying to like, for you, everything just like all this stuff happened, boom, 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 you just went right into the job. And then it's like, I was selling something on eBay, it wasn't working right. And then I find out from people that it's totally different these days. I don't even know if we're supposed to say anything about these kind of any other companies. Good Lord. So we'll leave that alone. We'll carry on, but needless to say, nothing got sold. So it's still sitting in my house. So it's also, I also am recognizing if it's not that I'm giving up easily, but I'm also knowing that that's not the path. That's not the path of least resistance for me. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm recognizing right now and what I want, everything that we're experiencing only helps us to kind of redefine exactly what we want, how we want our life to go, because we're the creator of this. And for me right now, it's surrendering, opening up the heart, it's surrendering to joy. It's finding out as many ways, how can I do that? I heard someone say something like, how can I get to know God more? Well, God's within all of us. Get to know yourself. It's like getting to know myself, getting to know God, asking the questions, how can I get to know God more? Because all these things kind of lead in a different direction. And I also feel lighter about stuff. And then for me, it's also learning to let go of a lot of these fears. And I think it kind of goes with that whole knowing thing too, like thinking you have to know everything, but taking a leap of faith and knowing when to take a leap of faith. Because I think in a lot of ways it was a leap of faith for you to to put yourself out there to say, hey, this, because like your soul knows, your spirit knows. It's like you're being guided in a direction for a reason, and that you took that, you stepped on it, even, and then it had a release, had a grief release before that even happened. And it wasn't just for that, it was that grief is for so many things that you got to release from your cells, from this body. It's pretty phenomenal. It is pretty phenomenal. I was listening to another person that was talking about how we receive trauma. And so getting our butts spanked and, all that stuff, that from a child standpoint can be traumatic. That's trauma. And all that energy that's coming at you, that energy is now stored in the body, because when you're a kid like that, you don't know what to do with that information that just came flown at you. Because whether it's words or music or TV or energy or the act of whatever's coming towards you, even sexual abuse, it changes everything. It's a trauma. And now that trauma is within your body until you're able to, until you have the tools, you've gathered enough so you can evolve and move past all this stuff. So there's just a lot, it seems like, going on all the time. And I feel like we're all going through a lot of this stuff, and it's for the evolution for all of us, because we don't want to feel the same way we've been feeling for a long time. So this is just one way to kind of point us in the direction. And just like for you, it's pointing you in the direction. It's a direction,
Yeah.
which feels good. And then you've got the relief of knowing that there's funds that are coming in to take care of these other things. And that gives you peace. What does peace give you? It gives you the possibility for more information to flow into. It gives you the possibility to open up your hands to receive more, because you're holding on so tight to everything that's coming in right now because we had to pay something, and I've been there my whole freaking life. That's why I say we know struggle, we know trauma, we know all that stuff. I don't know joy. I don't know joy. Even if I have experiences here and there of joy, which I'm not even sure I'm sure I have. There's got to be. They'll remind me. But you know what I mean? I'm not that familiar with it. I'm familiar with trauma. I'm familiar with struggle. I've been I grew up in it, and it's been that way for a long time. And it's like, okay, well, how can I be different than that? I don't know yet. I don't know, because I'm still on a daily basis figuring out, what do I want? What does it matter to me? It was a big deal for me for doing massage, just to go from the black slacks that I would always wear with a certain tops and all that stuff and all business, to I decided I'm going to be comfortable. I'm comfortable in my leggings. I can squat down. I can get up because I do lunges. Basically, when I'm doing a massage, if I'm doing a glide, there's certain areas I'm working on, I'm in a lunge position. I'm in a squat position. So there's a lot of things that I do that makes it comfortable for me. That was like frowned upon from school. That's someone else's expectation of how things should look. I don't really care. For me, it's, I want to feel comfortable. And so these are those little, that's a tiny thing. That's only a tiny aspect of how we've been kind of corralled and guided on this journey of what, and I say corralled and guided because we've taken into consideration everybody else's opinions and their feelings about how we should be and how we should live our life. I was listening to that Michael Bernard Beckwith, and he's like, he was a kid walking up and he could see his uncle, and he says, my uncle thinks I'm his, nephew, and my grandma thinks I'm her grandson, and my mom thinks I'm her son. I'm not any of those things. We're so much more than those labels. We're just so much more vast than all that. And it created a confusion with him because he had a greater understanding at that stage of life. And then what happened is he kind of dimmed his light so you could be what everybody wanted you to be, because that made them happy. And if that made them happy, then that made you happy. But then we're constantly looking for, doing tricks to make someone happy, to make us happy. It's such a vicious cycle when it was always us to do it for ourselves. But we weren't taught that way. We were taught outside of ourselves. And I know we've talked about all the stuff. It's just refresher stuff, really.
Well, you think about business too, that back in the day, in our generation and before, it was suit and tie. It was dress and heels. It was, you're right, dress to the nines. And now here we are today, and you see these business influencers, high dollar, making millions, wearing jeans and t-shirts on stage.
Yeah.
They're comfortable, just like the way you're talking about. They're comfortable. What's important is the value that they're contributing. So, I mean, Dean Graziosi, for one, he says, like, he has a bunch of black t-shirts and jeans. That way he doesn't have to think about what he's going to wear that day. Right? I mean, how I know I spend a lot of time in my closet standing there looking at my clothes going, oh, what am I going to wear today? And so how much, because they're very, business influencers, they're very mindful of what they do with their time. And they don't want to think about what they're wearing. This is it. So when I first heard that, and I'm thinking, man, how much time do I spend standing in my closet thinking about what I'm going to wear, or figuring out what I'm going to wear? It's a lot. It's a lot. So I just found that interesting when that was presented to me. And even women are changing that up. Like, they show up on stage in what they're comfortable in, not what is expected of them.
Which I like.
Yeah.
Again, permission, right? It's just people around us giving us permission to be ourselves when we don't need the freaking permission.
Right.
That's the crazy thing. But we rely on someone else giving us permission, just like we were still here and our parents are still running our lives. But they're not.
Yeah.
But we're still in that mind space. A lot of us are still in that mind space. And I would say I thought I was further and further away from that, but then I find little things and they're nuggets. I'm not unhappy about finding these things, because it's like, it's nice to know. I always felt like I would do something wrong. That's where I was defending myself all the time at the time. And I'm sure that defensiveness came from, just, you did that to your sister, but they didn't really see what happened. And then I got in trouble. You know what I mean? Because I'll guarantee you that I did that with my kids. I'll guarantee you, because some kids are really good at, better than other kids that's like really pointing the finger. And I can tell you, I've seen it between my grandkids too. So it's like it's a thing that doesn't have to be a thing, and we don't have to have permission to stop doing it. I was asking, we have our families, parents and everybody have different rules, but it's like when you come to my house, there's different rules here. You know what I mean? It's not like it's where it's harsh, but it's like, if you want to dismantle something, go ahead and dismantle it, because you're going to put it back together again, because this is their kids. Kids need to take things apart and put them back together, their toys and stuff. And it's like I tell them, if you want to break them, then you can play with breaking with broken toys until new toys come in. That's fine, because they're making a choice. They've got to make a choice. It's got to be up to them whether they're going to take the tires off their vehicles and swap them around. And if they get lost, they get lost. Who cares? then keep the card. It's their stuff. It's like, it's not a big deal. But I find that when we've got kids out there that have been so micromanaged, they're now becoming parents that are micromanaging their children. That is extremely frustrating, not only for the child, but for the parent, because the child's never going to do, it's never going to meet the expectation of its perfection that the adult has, because the adult can't even meet that expectation of that perfection. They can't. But it's an ongoing thing, but it's up to each one of us to see it within ourselves, not to go point fingers at someone else and say, hey, listen, this is, I can see what you're doing. Your life could be so much easier if you weren't doing this. I don't know. I would never have received that information growing up. When I was raising my kids, I would never have received it, which is because that's where I was at, because I was defensive, because I was trained that I should always know. I should always know all the answers. So it's like I didn't need to listen to anybody else. And I used to always say, I know, I know. And sometimes I'll still say it, but then I'll catch myself and I'll be like, do I know? Sometimes it feels like I do on that instance, like practicing. So here's another thing. We've got all this stuff out there. Anybody that wants to practice on their mediumships abilities, on their channeling abilities, on whatever, we've got all this access to, we've got life. We've got all this access all day long. If I get a message from someone, I'm holding my phone, I'll get a couple of visions of images of someone that might cross through my mind. And then it's like, oh, that was Amy. And I look at my phone, and it was Amy. Okay, I didn't have to call anybody and say, hey, guess what? No, it was my confirmation for myself to help build up my own confidence, right? That's for me. And I'm doing this all the time, but we've got life that's around the corner. I mean, we've got it right in front of us all day long. We can practice anything we want to do all day long. It's just where we're putting our energy into. My energy's been all over the freaking place forever. I really, it's crazy. That's just like trying to micromanage children. It's crazy. It's not comfortable. It doesn't feel good. It's crazy. So I'm learning that I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be more defined. I want to have an idea of what I'm doing, where I'm going to go to, what's going to make me feel happier, finding out what those passions really are. So like all these things, everything that's been happening in my life has only made me ask for more. It's only brought to my perspective that, hey, I was comfortable. I'm not comfortable with that anymore. I want more. And that's all right. We've been trained to think that that's not okay to ask for more. It is okay. What's the worst that can happen? Someone says no. Okay. Well then, okay, universe, which direction do I go? Because there is a yes right around the corner.
Yeah, and that takes surrendering, right? That's what I had to do, surrender to it. Say, okay, what's my next move? Where do I go now? So,
which means you can't be busy, right? You can't be distracted. You can't keep yourself in a busy state of mind and trying to make everybody else happy around you and listen at the same time. You just can't do it.
yeah,
So you got to listen.
so interesting. I also wanted to share with you because we do, Bev and I, we do a 12-month spread on our cards, and we do that like in the end of December, beginning of January of each year. And I just said this earlier when we first started. It wasn't until like September 7th that I realized I hadn't read my card for September.
Mm-hmm.
And my card for September says, part of it is seeds well planted, a temporary pause in action, unnecessary worry. And I just thought, isn't that interesting?
Wow. Wow.
I thought, wow, if that's not a validation or confirmation, man, I don't know what is. So, and I didn't read it. So I didn't read it in August. I didn't read September's in August. I've focused on August card. And then all this transpired, and because I started August 30th, I think it was August 30th, my new job. And I didn't read that card until September 7th.
Wow. Which is funny because for mine, it says balance. That's my card thing, right? And it also says heart in conflict with the mind. So what I've been focusing on has been my heart. I mean, it's been really heavy, like it's constantly, I say heavy, that is not the right word. It's very, very prominent on my mind. It's been my focus. it's been in my experience, people are coming to me that are around me is bringing more of that information forward for me. And it says to make it, it's everything would just be fine if you would just make a decision. Yeah, I get that a lot. And then it's knowing where to make the decision, what, how to make it's all these little facets instead of taking the leap of faith, right? Which I get the card for leap of faith. I'm like, okay, tell me, show me. What am I, what's the leap of faith from? I mean, what am I leaping from? Because to me, it's you're leaping from one space to another. Am I leaping from massage? Am I leaping from a relationship? Am I leaping from my vehicle? Do you know what I mean? There's so many ways that I could look at that. So it's like not knowing for sure. Well, how do we learn to know for sure? How do we know for sure? It's through meditation. It's through meditation. It's ridiculous. So stupid. No, just kidding. So stupid.
So simple.
But
So
but
simple.
it is amazing because I did a meditation. One of my meditations last week, I was shown myself as an energy being, like an energy, just energy. I was just energy, and it was a shape of a person. Did I ever tell you that? It's the shape of a person. No fingers, but had the shape of the hands. No hair, but the shape of the head, and like a fire body, that a fire, electric, energetic body. That's how it was shown to me. And since then, it'll pop into my mind, and it's like, then I get excited about these kind of things because I'm like, okay, so if I'm visualizing myself or seeing what I'm perceiving to be my higher self, that this is just this energetic, this energetic being, that I can be this energetic being at any moment, because I'm the only thing that keeps me separate is me thinking I'm just human. But I'm not just human. I'm also this energetic being. And from that energetic being, what does that mean to me? That means to me that I can touch someone and I can heal them. I don't have to have a reason why. And gosh, when I say that, when you touch someone and heal them, does that mean that you have a judgment in your mind that they're not well? Or do you know what I mean? It's because that's kind of like a judgment, or is it just always just touching people from a space, from the heart, from a love? Probably more that way, because what would my energetic being be? It would be love. So it would always be from a space of love. So everything that I would do would be from that space of love with everything, but it's to be that energetic being, or to be in awareness or recognize and allow that being to be in this process, in this human experience, to fully live this experience how I intended to live it before I came here, but to live it, that to be in a space of joy, to be in joy. What does that even look like? Like, I can't even fathom what that looks like. I have zero clue. And so I'm excited because life has guided me to ask these questions for myself. I'm excited because I don't know what that looks like right now. So was that part of my leap? Was it just a change of thoughts? Seriously. And I'm thinking about massage. If I thought about leaving massage, am I leaving the old me behind in that massage and then continuing massage? Do you know what I mean? It could look totally different because from that energetic being, what does that energetic being want to do? And so for me now, it's doing the same thing that we've been talking about. It's surrendering, right? It's not being, I don't have to have everybody else's permission. I can just surrender. I can surrender. And what does that life look like for me? It's not going to make sense to somebody else. It's only going to make sense to me, and it's not supposed to make sense to somebody else, because we're so amazing that we could be so unique in each one of our experiences as a single person here, even though we're all connected. There's just a possibilities are endless. It's just whatever you want it to be. So from having that experience of, me not wanting to meditate, but doing it anyways, it was awesome. And for me, all it was sitting there. I closed my eyes. I wasn't focused on any meditation. I didn't set a timer. I just sat there and experienced. How did my body feel right at that moment? Where was I being pulled to my body? Whether I have mosquito bites too, so I don't know. I haven't been able to find out what that means, but I also know you got something that's gotten under the skin. I've allowed something under my skin. So, with all that being said, but I've given myself permission, not needing it from somebody else. I've given myself permission to go ahead and take this move forward. But it's like the universe is the one that keeps showing me this image of a light body, like a body that's doing things. And so to me, that, again, I'm going back to that, it just frees me up, and I can do anything. Like, I can do anything. I just need a little bit of new tools.
Yeah.
And I think that's all from the heart space.
Well, and then people need to understand that in surrender is you're letting go of control. And that's super difficult for somebody who's doesn't feel in control. Like if there's certain aspects that they feel that they can control, surrendering might be a difficult task. But really, we don't have control of anything outside of ourselves. We just have control of what's going on within ourselves. And that leap of faith, like you're talking about, is surrendering control. So when we say surrendering control.
Mhm.
I mean, I had no idea what it would look like for me to get a full-time job. I explained to Bev that I had a certain way I was viewing it. And then when I just said, okay, universe, where could I be the best, right? What could I help me here? And so then this position open that I have now, and it's been great. I have a flexible schedule. I have a great environment. I'm utilizing my tools that I have already from my business. So it's when I surrendered that control and my idea of what my job was going to look like, something amazing opened up. So just be mindful of that. It's just surrender is an interesting word, and so is faith. So, and I have the acronym for faith is finding answers in the heart.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
And as you were talking, I thought about we've been micromanaging our inner child.
Yeah.
Having it, we're no different from something that I'm seeing outside of us. It's actually within inside of ourselves. So until I can deal with me not micromanaging my inner child and me allowing my inner child just to be,
Yeah.
then it's not going to reflect to me on the outside that way. Because what's reflecting to me from the outside of me is what's within inside of myself. That's a realization it just dawned on me just now. So again, I could sit there and be a victim or a victim for somebody else or whatever, but it's not a matter of that. It's like, how is it showing up for me? How is it helping me to evolve? Because we have these askings, so we got answers that are coming forward, so we can bring forward the stuff that we don't want to have inside of us anymore. It's like having all this muck on your lenses, and these little things come up, and you just wipe it away. You take time to look at it, and then it just wipes it away. You loved it, you embrace it, and now you've got clear vision. You can see things around you so differently.
So good. So good.
That's a good song.
Well, I think we covered a lot of stuff in this past hour, maybe not quite an hour.
Yeah.
Are there any other final words that you might have?
It's the same thing that I would have left off with last time. It's really all about love. Honestly, if I wasn't in a space of love, how could I have just now had this experience in front of you, seeing that it's not something that's outside of me that's happening with my grandkids and adults around them. This is something this is coming from within me. It's only showing up for me. It's like your heart's projecting onto a video screen right in front of you and showing you exactly what's going on within yourself. But from that space, a lot of times that's where the defensiveness will come up again. That's where the victim will come up again to want to fix things. The fixer comes up again and wants to fix things. And it's like recognizing that we're always planting seeds all along, and that those seeds we think that we're planting them outside of ourselves right now. This is what my mind's telling me, but they're not being planted outside of us. They're actually being planted within inside of us. So we're like, oh, well, hope she listens. I at least planted some seeds. That's like us saying right to ourselves in a mirror, hope she listens, because I just planted the seeds. Our words are of value all the time. So what are we contributing?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for being here. And
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for showing up when probably could have been in bed another day. What you talking about, girl? It's Sunday.
We thank the audience for hanging out with us. And we know you could be doing anything other than listening to us. And so thank you for your time and energy as well. So with that, we'll see you next week with Tea Time with Amy and Bev.
Bye.